Kia ora tātou. Nau mai haere mai ki te huia ipurangi, i ngā rangatira, tēnā koutou, anei tō tātou karakia. He honore, he karori ki te atua, he maungarongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Āmene.
Sure, thank you very much. Now, James and I had a conversation yesterday about how we were going to manage the meeting. So I'll just shift to, well, actually, are you able to put up the shared screen? Are we going to do it that way?
Yes,
or
I can share that. Oh, hang on, it's disabled. Are you able to reset that, Juliet?
What James has done is he's put together a very sort of kind of simple run sheet which will facilitate the meeting.
Juliet, are you able to share that?
Yes, yeah. I can do that.
It's turned off at my end, that's all.
Okay, well I will start reading it because I've managed to put it on the side of my screen. I've been informed that there is a quorum present and I'm pleased to declare the meeting open. The meeting will be recorded and made available on the Environment Canterbury website. This is to make up for the requirements of the COVID situation that we're in, because this is a public meeting. Please use the chat function to let me know if you are moving or seconding a motion or wish to speak. Well, there's a hand up thing on the, oh gosh, how did that happen? Now what's happening? Something happened.
Hello, Leanne. I've wondered if I've shared it funny. Sorry about that. I'll take that off and give that another try. Sorry.
All right. So we've got a little function called reactions, and that's got a hand up function. So that's probably the easiest thing, is that if you raise your hand, then it will bring you to the top of my screen, so I'll be able to see you. Sam did it very successfully at the Canterbury Mayoral Forum, which was on just before. Silence will be taken as agreement. So instead of asking people to say, yay, yes, we agree, I'm actually going to get people to disagree. So any objections will be my putting of the motion. And if people have an objection, then that will be noted. And we will send you a note about it being taken, you know, that the nature of the meeting and the COVID rules. So I've received apologies from Environment Canterbury Chair Jenny Huey. It says that I've received apologies from Sam Broughton, but I can see him. And I've received apologies from Elizabeth Cunningham, but Jamie is here in her place. So were there any other apologies that people were aware of? Does someone want to move that we receive the apologies? Yep, Sam seconded. Jamie, I'll put that motion. All those in favour. Oh, sorry. Any objections? There appear to be none. Moving on. Conflicts of interest. I haven't received any conflicts of interest. Don't see any hands up. No requests for deputations or petitions have been received. So we move on to the minutes. Are there any matters of accuracy relating to these minutes? No. Would someone like to move that they be received? I can't see everyone, so
well,
John Sunkel. Sorry,
I've given it a go, just sharing the tab with the run sheet on it. So I'm hoping that you can see that.
Yep, I can. I mean, I've got mine up separately now, but anyway, so it's been moved by John that the minutes be received and confirmed as a correct record, seconded by Someone else want to put their hand up? No, no one?
Yeah, I'm happy to second, Leanne.
Murray. So I've got Murray's hand up. It's if you put your hand up, you go straight to the top of the images. So so move John, seconded Murray. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Sorry, any objections? There appear to be none. That's carried. So that was for both of those meetings. Are there any matters arising from the minutes? I just thought just one, there's been a delay in interviewing for the new regional group controller position due to the lockdown, but that will take place as soon as we can organise a new date. The interviews were going to be conducted this week. I'll move on to, I'm actually going to go straight to item 7.5, and the reason for that is because that is that's an important item to deal with, because we've got a report and we're going to deal with the we need to get the, sorry, I can't seem to construct the screen. We need to appoint the interim group recovery manager. So perhaps the appointment, actually the resolution should actually receive, is it an interim group recovery manager? Sorry, James, can you help me out with that one?
It is a group recovery manager position. It's an interim one in the sense that Peter is filling the gap until we employ and appoint a new person. So we could be saying interim, but it is actually a group recovery manager position.
Okay, but as long as people are clear that it's an interim position. Yeah, John, yes. Did you have your hand up again, or? You'll have to unmute. Try again. Can you unmute yourself? No? Can we unmute him? Can you not? You're still muted, John.
I've unmuted him, John.
That's it. That's it. No, you've gone again.
He has put his hand up.
Yeah, I know, but he can't. I can't hear him. No, we can't hear a single word you say. Perhaps put a question in chat. Sorry about this. Look, rather than just wait for that, people are generally comfortable with the question that's been put in the paper. I mean, the appointment position. You'll understand with Baden having retired during that period that it's really important that we have an interim person in place. I'm happy to move it if somebody's happy to second it. Sam Broughton. So is there any discussion on the paper? There appears to be none. And so again, I'll put the motion, but ask instead, are there any objections? John's still got his hand up for some reason. No. He doesn't know how to take it down yet. So, and all right, so that appears to be carried. So that's 7.5 dealt with. And now we're going to move on to the health update, and we think that this will be the most significant presentation that we have today, largely because we're going to focus on the lockdown. I stupidly thought that we would be in a position of having the Prime Minister in the background telling us what it was, but of course the Prime Minister is in Cabinet, and we won't know till 3 o'clock, which is the end of the meeting, but we may be finished early. So who am I handing over onto this? Sorry, it's a bit difficult to...
So Leanne, it's James here. It'll be Deborah Callahan and Helen, sorry, I've forgotten your last name, Helen.
Skinner. So Peter Bramley here, James. So if I could lead off, is that okay?
Juliet,
yes.
Can you take the screen down, Juliet? Because apparently that's where the problem
Yes, sure.
has occurred for John. Right. Okay. Thank you.
So Peter Bramley here, kia ora koutou everyone. So I'm the Chief Executive for Canterbury DHB and West Coast DHB, and I've got with me Dr. Helen Skinner, who is our lead of the emergency response from a health perspective across the health system. And so I thought we together would provide you all an update from health's perspective, and very happy to take questions, and certainly would value all of your collective and collaborative efforts. So just to remind everyone, at this stage, we have no known cases of COVID-19 in the community, and I would just like to provide the reassurance to you that should that eventuate, then I will make sure you hear directly from us should that arise. There are further community cases, as you're aware of today, across the country, particularly the two. We've been told from the Ministry of Health that it is 2 further community cases in Wellington. So you can see, obviously, there will be growing concern, and quite likely that more cases obviously will appear across potentially the country, given how transmissible this Delta variant is, given the huge mobility of those initial cases and the social locations they were present in. So since we went, or with the announcement of going into lockdown, from a health perspective, we've been doing a huge amount to reset the health system, as well as prepare the health system for the eventuality of the possible eventuality of a community outbreak, at the same time maximising both testing and vaccination capability. So what I'll do is I'll just hand over to Helen to provide that update for you, and then we're happy to take questions. You can post them on chat, and happy to pick up any questions. I would say James and team from a liaison role are very much connected to the health emergency response. So if there are any concerns going into the future, we have questions or concerns, please channel those through James. He is present at our emergency coordination meetings, which we're having 3 times a day across the health system. So good to meet you all, but I'll hand over to Helen.
Thank you. Kia ora, my name's Helen Skinner. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Canterbury District Health Board, the Senior Responsible Officer for COVID, and I'm the ECC, so Emergency Coordination Centre Incident Controller for this incident. So to let you know, we are in yellow. This is to do with the hospital escalation framework, and also the community services framework. That basically tells us what we should be doing nationally in terms of what we should be deferring and what we should be continuing with. And that covers outpatient appointments, radiology, and also surgery, and we're following that national guidance. We have increased our testing capacity in our CBACs, and we're working very closely with our primary care colleagues through CPRG to facilitate that through the ECC with that increase in testing. To give you some idea, we tested over 3,100 people yesterday. You've probably seen in the media around some of the challenges. The wait times have been reducing as we increase capacity across the system in terms of our CBACs, but also importantly through our primary care system as well. In terms of vaccination, we are also making sure that we increase our vaccination, and I'm responsible for that from an SRO point of view. To date in Canterbury, we have done over 240,000 vaccines, and we are about to stand up a drive-through model at the weekend where we will get to full capacity by the middle of next week around the drive-through. What that allows us to do is to rebook people who had had things deferred when we were asked to stand things down for 48 hours that then got reduced. And in addition, it allows us to prioritise our Tier 2C, which is our workforce, for example, in petrol stations, supermarkets, distribution centres, and it allows us to be able to do a number of vaccinations per day. We, as mentioned, have increased our capacity for vaccination and have planned 57,000 vaccinations across our region for the next 7 days. We are concentrating on looking after our vulnerable, both workforce, but more importantly across our health system and also into the community, and are working closely, as mentioned, with CDEM, obviously our own community and public health, and also working across ARC facilities and through our community. And as Peter mentioned, we're working closely with CDEM, with James joining us in our ECC and EOC. Our EOCs that join into our ECC encompasses a wide range through vaccination, MIQF and B, primary care, and also through obviously our hospital system and also to the West Coast. In terms of staffing, we are managing our staffing, which is satisfactory at the moment in terms of community services and also across the hospital, but we are prioritising CBACs in terms of our testing capacity and also our vaccination sites. And we're also redeploying some of our staff to make sure that we're covering those really high priority areas. We have comms as part of our ECC, and we've organised obviously communications that are going out to the public. From a hospital point of view, we are working well within our hospital system. You will have seen that we are restricting visiting. That obviously is allowed on compassionate grounds, and that's being managed by our charge nurse managers, but that is so that we can keep the system safe. We obviously remain open for business, and we've been communicating that to the public. There's always a worry that people who should be coming into our hospital system continue to access it. It's safe to do so, and we've been doing that. We've also been making sure that people know where to go in terms of primary care, who have been going to a virtual health model. There obviously are continuing to see people that are needed to be seen face to face, including in the urgent care centres, which we are in contact with. Our laboratories have increased their testing capacity to allow the testing that we're doing in our community centres to be tested quickly and get a really tight turnaround time. In cases that can be anything between 2 to 4 hours when we need to get staff back onto rosters, but definitely within that 24-hour period. We are connected, as mentioned, with our ARC facilities, obviously as part of our workforce, and we know that we've obviously been vaccinating and have already vaccinated that workforce prior to this. We are assisting nationally, both in terms of the laboratories with testing, and so we'll be providing assistance to the Auckland region in terms of testing. And we also are providing assistance in community and public health with contact tracing for the outbreak in Auckland. Very happy to take any questions.
I think just one comment to make. Obviously, if lockdown goes on, I think there's going to be a community-wide response needed around just supporting the welfare of our community. Unfortunately, we've been there before, and we just know that particularly for our most vulnerable in our community, the issues will surface significantly as lockdown goes on. So we'll need to do some of that welfare stuff well together again, I'm sure. But anyway, happy to take questions. Do you want me to lead that, Leanne? Do you want to coordinate the discussion, Leanne?
Well, I'm happy to. I've got the screen open and I can see who's got their hands up. I did put one through, which was anything picked up in the wastewater testing. The answer yesterday was no, I heard the Prime Minister say, but keen to know if that's still the case for Canterbury.
Yeah, there's nothing being flagged as yet in the wastewater for Canterbury, so that's encouraging. Bearing in mind, we do have managed isolation facilities, which obviously we have COVID positive people in those, and therefore that does cause some triggering of wastewater for that area, but nothing to suggest a community outbreak.
Okay. Now, I've got another one that's come in writing, but I'll run through these ones first. Sam?
Yeah, thank you, and cheers for the update. It's nice that we've got this meeting now and the cycle, I suppose, but really keen to understand what the information sharing is going to be tomorrow and on Sunday and on Monday. And the type of information that you've just shared with us in 3 minutes would be great to have, like a daily video or bi-daily, or just something that's easy for me as a community leader to be able to share, which is really just around the affirmation of the good work that's happening. People are glued to their computers at 1 p.m. or 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. whenever the Prime Minister's on, and it's not necessarily about the drama. It's actually just knowing about being current with information. And just note that some of the emails I received today have got data from 9 a.m. yesterday on it, which, you know, is kind of interesting yesterday, but I'm not likely to share it today. And so what's been put in place that this could be public facing local information that people in Canterbury can go, oh good, the hospital's onto this, the testing looks like this, the vaccinations are in this space, and just helping people feel like there's actually some good work happening as well as the current lockdown.
So we've been doing regular public communications that have been coming out from the ECC communications. We haven't done any videos to date, but I can certainly speak to our ECC communications about what we can do to improve that.
Yeah, and potentially we might take counsel and advice from those in the comms world, particularly across places like councils and so forth, but potentially we can pull together a simple update from health that could be available publicly each day. It has been a very fast moving feast, so I can appreciate the need for a daily update would be helpful, but even within the day, the story can change. But we'll work at that, because we're very happy to work to providing that for you all, that you can then at least be kept up to date in terms of your roles, but also potentially share that wider.
Just because all the channels that we currently have, that mayors have into our communities and councils have, are existing. They're very clear, and people know where to go for that information. And so, rather than doubling up on anything new, just something that's short and succinct. Data as of 10 a.m. today, available by midday, or something like that, would just allow people to connect in, and happy to be a part of a further conversation around enabling that if you need. I'm sure the other mayors would as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think all of our comms teams are trying to keep a sort of a running information line. I noticed that people have put up these lines. Deborah's popped up the Vaccinate Canterbury West Coast for the latest vaccination data, and the DHB ones for the latest COVID info. I think what we're trying to do is trying to collate all of the information so that it's just a single source of truth. Leanne very helpfully has put up, Leanne Watson from the Chamber, helpfully put up the link to the webinar that they're running this afternoon. Awesome that you've got 1,200 people registered. It just shows that there's a lot of need for information out there. Information is king at a time like this, and the business helplines back up and running again. So that's great. So thank you for that. Neil.
Yeah, I agree with the last two speakers. So we need the information. What I'm going to ask is probably on that information, but of the 240,000 vaccinations done already, how many of them are 1 or 2 doses? And how many have we got to do in your area, Canterbury?
So, so Deborah, I don't know if you're able to get that from there because you've obviously got that live. I've just got the information on there. Have you got the? Sorry, Deborah's in ECC Intelligence, so.
We'll come back and provide that information for you.
Yep.
So we'll share that unless you've got that, Deborah.
Yeah, you're looking for, repeat the question, please.
How many
Sorry.
first doses?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How many are first doses and how many are second doses of the 240,000?
Yeah, by dose, 157,512 dose 1. Sorry, yep, that's current existing vaccinations, and 83,460, it's very small, dose 2 vaccinations have been completed. We have bookings currently for 84,000 first doses and 150,000 second doses. So we've got a lot coming, a lot of churn coming through the system.
And what's the maximum number we can do?
Well, we've been moving up from 2,000 a week to 8,000 a week to 12,000 a week. And I believe we're over 35,000 a week now, moving to 57,000 vaccinations a week from starting this week for next week. So
I'll rephrase the question.
Yeah.
How many from 12 years old up are there to do in Canterbury?
12-year-olds, we have not started the public vaccination of the 12 to 15-year-olds yet. So
I think
our
that
capacity,
was announced.
Yep,
that was announced yesterday, and
Yep.
It's for people to register for next month. I don't
That's
think
right.
anyone started on the 12 to
Yep.
15-year-olds.
No, and we can't vaccinate people without bookings. So even though public advice might have been to bring your 12-year-olds along with you when you get your vaccine, we're unable to cope with that. We have a set number of vaccines, set up and ready for bookings.
There was a question for John Price around the percentage of his workforce that's vaccinated. And I guess one of the other questions, which is a health related one to that, is whether the staff working in the home-based care, there was an item on the news last night that indicated that there was some issue with people getting appointments for vaccines due to employers perhaps not wanting them to book them during work hours.
Yeah, so the majority of clinical facing employees within the DHB have certainly been vaccinated. Obviously, border workers, MIQ workers are all vaccinated. In terms of residential providers of healthcare, working closely, as Helen mentioned, AIDS residential care, both providers and residents have been vaccinated. And we've worked with all of the various providers in our community to ensure those workforces are largely vaccinated in terms of frontline or client-facing roles. The Healthcare New Zealand, the one that featured on the news last night, is one that's lagging. We've reached out over the last few weeks to offer support, but they obviously will be working to close that gap, I'm sure.
Right. Can anyone help out with the police stats? I can't see if John's there.
Yep, John's here, Leanne.
Yeah, sorry, Leanne. I am
hello,
here.
John.
Yes.
I didn't recognise you with your mask on.
Sorry.
Who was that masked man?
Not a good look when the police are wearing masks, but anyway. Look, yeah, all of our MIQ staff that are operating in the 6 MIQs we've got operating here are fully vaccinated with their second dose. The general populace of police, we fit in the public arena, and at this stage we're about 40% have been vaccinated. So we're actively working that through at the moment, but we're just like everyone else in the public. So we've got some things in place to try and speed that up, but we're a little bit behind as a result of government policy on police vaccination.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree that you're like everyone else, but yeah, I would have liked to have seen more of a focus on
Yeah.
update.
So
but I
Leanne,
accept that it's not your fault.
And
Yeah,
Leanne,
that's right.
we are now prioritising what those essential worker groups, so working with a variety of settings where we're giving priority to making sure those essential workers are being supported to get vaccinated. So
Right.
places like food distribution, for instance, is one of those areas.
Yeah, and service stations, I think, was
That's
another
right.
one too. Yeah. Dan.
Thanks, Leanne, and just Peter, thank you to you and your team for what you're doing. By the way, I just want to, well, firstly, just support me, Leanne, in that last comment around our police. I think are an absolute priority to be vaccinated and looked after, given the essential role an ambulance, all those staff do to make sure we're looked after. So if it's any voicing of support from us as mayors, then you've got that if you need that, John. Just supporting further from Mayor Sam's comments before, last time round, the information took a long time to get to us, and I'm hoping that we're not going to end up with a lot of cases in our community, fingers crossed, but breakdowns and information is helpful. And there might be two sources. One is the public facing, but also that knowledge by district would be helpful to know, that we can just share internally with our councillors and our staff. People knew last time, others knew what was going on in our districts and how many cases there were. We were the last to know, and it took right until the end of that process last time around to get that information. So if that's possible, we'd like in the modelling, Peter, that would be very helpful to have. Because we get asked questions on that all the time. And also, if it's possible to know as well, how many have been vaccinated in our particular areas would be also very useful to know, just so we know how that's going. Thank you.
Okay.
So I spoke with James from a CDM point of view exactly around that, around when we're able to give a heads up if and when we have community cases. And obviously with James being in our EOC, ECC meetings, that's where it is also discussed, so that we're able to give an early heads up when we have community cases. We also have a breakdown of vaccinations by site, which says, you know, where they are, whether it's at Princess Margaret, whether it's at Wigram, etc. So we have all of that information in terms of a breakdown of where the vaccinations have been delivered.
All right, Mari.
Thanks, Leanne. It's really encouraging to know that the vaccine rate is improving. Do you envisage any supply chain issues, given that there is increasing numbers for vaccinating in this last week and week coming, maybe?
So a couple of comments from me, and then I'll get Helen to comment. So in terms of supply chain, and that ranges across a variety of things. Vaccine supply is in good shape at the moment. So that's allowing us to try and maximise our vaccine delivery while also keeping everyone safe in terms of COVID protocols. PPE, which is really important across our community in terms of those that are in those front-facing roles. There's good PPE supplies, both locally and in the country. And then there's some other procurement challenges around some of the things that are present, like pharmaceuticals getting into the country and so forth, which has been a constant challenge over the past few months. But generally, we're in good shape in terms of supply chain.
Yeah, so from vaccination, no, I think the challenge we have, which we are managing, is around workforce. Obviously, it's a big workforce in terms of vaccinators, admin staff, wayfinding. So that's what we are working through and prioritising, which is allowing us to get up to that 57,000 for next week, for the next 7 days. From the point of view of, as Peter mentioned, PPE, if there have been any central delays to any of our, in terms of the health system and out to our healthcare workers on the front line, we've made sure that from an ECC logistics point of view, we provided that straight away. So there have not been gaps in terms of PPE, and we're managing that through central supplies and also through the DHB supplies.
Are there any other questions? Can't see anyone. Deborah, can I come back to you? That Craig asked the question about the clear message on TV that if you had your 12-year-old, I mean, which is true. I heard that said as well. Ah, so you've just answered it.
I was just typing the response, and I accidentally pushed send before finishing my last sentence. So with only a very few certain clinics who are delivering a phonocentric approach, in other words, if you come in with your phono, then you're going to get vaccinated, because that we know that's a priority population. Secondly, generally speaking, without exception, other than what I just said, then clinics are delivering vaccines only to people who have booked a vaccine. We do have a longer shelf life of the vaccines now. We don't, there is one other exception that I was saying, that sometimes a person could get a vaccine without a booking, and that might be at the end of the day, and they've drawn up a certain number of vaccines and people haven't showed up, then they might be looking for a person that they can stick it in their arm. But apart from that, the advice to bring your 12 to 15-year-olds along with you is unfortunately very challenging for us to deal with.
So, well, that was the advice. I definitely heard it, but it was only for a very time-limited period. It was just for those that have, who are literally going in now. You know, then take your 12-year-old to 15-year-old with you. Otherwise, book them in with you. So book them in at the same time. So it really was, you know, look, don't let this chance go by. So it may well be that people will need to have a little bit extra if they heard that on hand.
Yeah.
But thank you. Good question. Yeah. Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. Could you just explain the drive-through that you're setting up next week? What will that do and what's it for?
So that's for, so what we wanted to do was make sure that we increased our capacity to vaccinate. But obviously during a level 4 lockdown, there is limited places that would allow us to do the social distancing that was required. And what we wanted to do was make sure that we were vaccinating our priority workforce in terms of the 2C, as mentioned, around supermarkets, petrol stations, etc. And as part of that, we had looked at a model in terms of drive-through, which basically allows us to manage large volumes of vaccinations in a day. And so we've set this up to be able to have people coming in their cars. So as we also can obviously test, but this is a vaccination option that would allow us to make sure that we're able to do the social distancing that's required. So it's a vaccination drive-through.
So two things, building capacity. It's about building capacity as well as providing an option that ensures everyone stays safe, and potentially if there's a COVID outbreak in the community.
Yeah, and you still need to book for that though.
Yes, so yes, that'll be via booking, but obviously from a code point of view, we will be prioritising the 2C, tier 2C.
So that'll be opened up from next week. The plan is to start utilising that. I think it'll provide 800 a day, but it'll be again through booking and opened up as we get through the priority people.
Very good. Is there anyone else? Just running through, I sent a note out saying, did everyone, is everyone aware of the DPMC? Oh no, sorry, Jamie, you had your hand up. Did you? No. Are you aware of the DPMC offer of a direct line of communication for elected members for complex matters? Are people aware of that? They're all nodding their heads. Good, right, good. Is there anything else? This has been incredibly helpful. So thank you, Peter, and thank you, Deborah.
We're happy to reconvene any time. Oh. And in fact, if we did end up with community cases, it may be worth scheduling a regular check-in that anyone can zoom in on, you know, even for half an hour or 20 minutes each day, just to keep everyone current. But we'll certainly look at communication so there's one source of truth. And I'm listening hard to Dan's feedback to make sure you as our community leaders are getting that information as soon as practical.
Yeah, that would be really, really helpful. And now that's sparked off a whole lot of others. So that's Sam and then James or John, one or the other.
Yeah, thank you. I was really just going to ask about that in the comms plan. Can you circulate that to us so we can see what to expect? Just around that single point of truth, good information, current and to community leaders would be really helpful. So just to know what we can expect. What is the plan?
Will do.
It doesn't have to be, not right now, but, you know, as a follow-up to the meeting. Thank you.
But if something were to happen, you know, like any community transmission involving our region, then I think it would be really important to reconvene this as quickly as possible.
So. We'll call a Zoom.
Yeah, that's great. James, is it you or John?
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. Just to let everyone know that we've got Simon Chambers on the line if you want to hear any sort of Nema updates. And I can also give an update on more the CDEM side of what we're doing to do with COVID. Plus also Hamish Riak and Ben Clark are online as far as the regional leadership group and where that might be going. So that's just some points that could be covered if you want to.
Look, I'd like to do that and leave Peter online if that's possible. And Deborah, is that okay? Cool. So who should we start with? James, should we start with Simon?
Probably Simon.
Simon?
Sure, everybody. Yeah, so Nema's, Simon Chambers here from National Emergency Management Agency. So Nema's National Coordination Centre was activated virtually on Tuesday as a result of the latest outbreak. It basically was to support the health response, but also to coordinate, as Peter's mentioned before, the CDM group's ability to provide welfare arrangements across the communities for essentially for household goods and food, and also temporary accommodation, but that's being done by MB, but there might be an expectation that groups would have to do that as well. The other thing of note probably is that as a result of the latest outbreak in Wellington, the All of Government National Crisis Management Centre has been activated this afternoon ahead of the PM's announcement. So we'll wait at 3 o'clock to see what that means.
Very good. James, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just to re-emphasise that part that Simon said around MBIE and MSD picking up most of the calls for supporting our communities, with CDM acting as a bit of a stopgap. And I know all our territorial authorities, talking to them this morning and the last couple of days, and with Jessica Peterson, our welfare manager, we know that we've got that pretty much covered, that if anyone slips through the cracks, our CDM system will pick them up. Hopefully, or mostly via referral from MSD or MBIE, but also directly through our council 0800 numbers or helpline numbers. That's all I wanted to add. Thanks, Leanne.
Great. Did Hamish and or Ben want to add anything?
Oh, just Leanne, to say that we were discussing the oversight group yesterday and felt we should just wait to see how today unfolded before that would start up. And further to the Mayoral Forum this morning, rather than myself down in Ashburton, where so many of the issues are centred around the bigger urban areas, it's likely that one of Waimakariri, Selwyn or Christchurch's chief executives will take a lead role in that oversight group rather than myself, who's a little further away.
Okay, Ben, did you have anything?
Only, kia ora all, only that the regional leadership group is part of the all of government response to provide that clearer line of sight between central government, caring for communities, the regional oversight in Canterbury, and then down to the local level. And it's not intended to directly manage a response, but to communicate and influence the strategic direction and support the operational response from James and CDM. And last year, the Canterbury COVID Oversight Group, which had more of a social wellbeing focus initially post the immediate outbreak, kind of took on that mantle of regional leadership group, partly expediently, but really that regional leadership strategic oversight responsibility could sit wherever we think it best sits from existing Canterbury governance. So there is the option to refresh the Canterbury COVID Oversight Group with whichever members have left and rejoined. But as long as the Oversight Group has strong representation from key stakeholders like central local government, iwi, CDM, of course, and can provide that oversight and as well as assign resources and act as a spokesperson, it doesn't need to be through the refresh of the Canterbury COVID Oversight Group. It could be a subgroup potentially of this current network with a couple of additions. So that's really the question to the members here as to where to place that responsibility.
So do you want feedback
Thanks.
on that now, Ben, or is that something we'd want to contemplate? Or
I would have thought probably contemplate, although if as we anticipate there is a longer lockdown period, then yeah, having a reasonably quick turnaround, and it would be worth members having had a chance, if they haven't already, to look at the Nema resurgence response document. It's not too long, and there are relevant paragraphs about the expected governance arrangement. There's also some information on the regional leadership group structures in all of the other regions in New Zealand, and suffice to say, they vary. So it's really down to us to work out what best fits our needs. But yeah, I think it's well worth James or I providing the relevant material, and then people considering that, and then maybe responding out of committee as soon as, especially if we go into a longer lockdown.
yeah, well, I mean, I've expressed my view on in other fora as well, that I'm very much in favour of a central government, local government BAU approach that then gets added to or subtracted from, depending on what the issue of the day might be. So, you know, embedding that whole approach. I just remember fondly the days of C-SPIN, which was one of the best ones in the country. It was the Christchurch Social Policy Information Network, and I think that's where Hamish has responded to sort of think about where those issues sit in terms of some of the urban issues, which is why Greater Christchurch becomes significant in being the baseline for it, but then with the capacity to extend out into the other areas as and when required. So that's really helpful, Ben, very helpful. Diane, I wondered whether you wanted to come in at all, because there's a sort of regional person that's obviously in the lead in this space too.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if I can give a wee bit of an update just so that to reassure people, because at the moment we are using a wee bit of a business as usual model, Leanne, in relation to some of this stuff. So if we look at the food secure element of it, our working income sites of course are open. We've got staff in all of our sites. Apart from the fact we're not open to the public because we are in level 4, but we are in and working, and we're processing food payments, hard ship payments, etc. We've been in touch with our food bank providers because a lot of the food bank providers already have a relationship with us either way. They say they're in a good place for the next couple of days, but obviously we're planning for the longer term should something happen. Both them and us didn't see the big whoosh in demand we thought we were going to see on Wednesday and Thursday. It's actually been, I hate to say this, almost like some of the stuff that we've put in previously has kicked in and it's felt quite smooth, but although I won't jinx that at the moment. Comms for our clients, we've got emails going out, we've got information going out. On the housing side, which is always the bigger question as well in relation to emergency housing, As we alluded to before, is we're using our business as usual projects there through emergency housing. We understand that IMBY has not stood up TAS yet, so therefore we are dealing with some of that. However, we've spoken to Jessica and the Nema team and our local CDM team. If there's somebody who comes up with an anomaly in the housing space and we cannot cover it under our business as usual, we've got starting to put a process in place where we work with those local CDM people here too, and that's been great. In relation to wage subsidies and the economic stuff, we are joining Leanne's team this afternoon on that seminar. Regan Jackson is going to do that for us to do some more information. We are gearing up in the wage subsidy space as we had to do before, getting extra people trained, etc., waiting for that to come through. However, what I can say from a Canterbury point of view is because we had such a good resurgence plan ready to go, in fact, we only reviewed it last Friday, saying, well, don't think we'll need it, but we better review it. And look what's happened this week. As the fact is that we have managed our BAU queues quite down to a minimal, and we're actually supporting some other regions at the moment until the wage subsidy kicks in. So we are in a good place from an MSD point of view, but certainly if this ends up with quite a long tail, we continue to monitor that and want to support our partners as much as we can. Yep.
That's very helpful too. Thank you very much for that, Diane. I just are you what you're sending out to your sort of clients, is that been copied into the council so that they're aware of what's happening as well?
All our leaflets and all our government stuff should go to the CDM groups as well, for them to do to their networks. So that should go out, but I'll just double check it has, Leanne, but I'm pretty sure that all our stuff is automatically copied through our resurgence plans to the people who are on your CDM groups from the councils, and then they support their networks with that. Yeah.
Brilliant. I just think it's the information, and there's so much information that's coming from different areas that it's really good to almost have that single source of truth approach.
They are planning an all of government fact sheet, which was supposed to come out yesterday.
It would be really good if all of government meant all of local government as well. Sometimes we get forgotten.
Yeah, and I haven't set my eyes on it yet, to be honest with you. Maybe it's come through and I haven't seen it, but certainly I think it's going through the Nema and CDM group first. But hopefully that will come out. But you're absolutely right. It's about all those local things as well that's going on. Yeah. And I know that through our MCP partnerships, which is our food secure, our family violence, all of those types of things, that's actually going out through those groups. I think there's been 3 communications since Wednesday with them. And I'm CC'd into those as a courtesy to make sure I know what's going on. But I'll make sure that your people within that CDM group get those as well.
Well, Simon's saying that the all of government fact sheet is still being discussed. Simon, right. Is the all of government fact sheet going to include local government facts as well?
Yes, Leanne, it is. There's a couple of clarity before it gets sent out, which especially in the welfare space around food and who's providing that. So hopefully that will come out later today.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. John, would you like to give us a little update on where police are at with this?
Certainly, Leanne. Thank you. Yeah, we've activated our BCP as well. We've only got 2 stations operating 24/7 open to the public. That's Timaru and Temuka and Te Omeka here. So they're just open to the public. We're seeing a bit of an increase in family harm, mental health uptake for calls. Our calls for service have still remained pretty high. We are currently operating under the health notice in that order, and our focus is on the reassurance and visibility. So I could say that most of the Canterbury community have been doing really well and adhering to the requirements of level 4, but there is a small number that haven't been. So our patrols are out. You'll hopefully see a high visibility number of people out and about. We've had protest actions, we've had 2. We warned the first group, and then yesterday they returned and 3 were arrested and they appeared in court today. There's a 3rd protest planned for Saturday morning, and it's all to do with the anti-lockdown group. So our focus from a police perspective remains on engage, encourage, educate, and then move to enforcement. We will move to that enforcement probably quicker than we did previously, just from the view that the Delta strain is a lot more likely to spread than any other. So you also see that we are doing a lot of visibility reassurance patrols around the testing and vaccine sites, dairies, supermarkets, petrol stations, to make sure people are adhering to the requirements. We had 1 theft of a vaccine yesterday, where a person took it and self-administered the vaccine themselves from their home. We're just mindful of what that might do as people become a little bit more concerned if and when Delta arrives here in the South Island. So just to give some reassurance to the mayors, we have the planned checkpoint regional lockdown capability. We've extended that across the whole of the South Island. So Tiwai Panamu is covered, and the 3 police districts have that in place, just so we can ensure the lifelines are able to continue to operate as required. Of interest, there has been a 71% drop in all light traffic and a 61% drop in heavy traffic, and we're monitoring that to ensure that people are staying at home and not roaming as they could do. Speed on our roads is still an issue. We've got less vehicles on the road, but people are speeding a lot faster, and the heavy trucks, we're concerned about the non-essential goods that are moving around the place at the moment, and we're talking to those companies to ensure that they actually adhere to what they're supposed to be doing. So that's me. Thanks, Leanne.
Look, thank you very much. I don't think there's anyone else. Is there anyone that I've kind of missed out that would want to contribute? Did any of the mayors have questions for, or members of the committee have questions for the for any of the people that have commented? No, right. I think that's all good.
Oh, Leanne, yeah, just one
Graham.
question, probably to Peter. We seem to have had an increasing number of anti-vaccine people dropping leaflets in letter boxes. I dare say the advertising's out there well and truly, the benefits of being vaccinated, but is it a growing problem?
Generally, I think we're experiencing more noise from a very few, but actually most people are now appreciating the value that a vaccine provides and how highly protective it is in ensuring the safety of our community. So we're seeing growing interest and growing acceptance of the need for and the importance of getting your whānau vaccinated. So I suspect we're going to have a noise from very few, as John's illustrated, the noise from a very few protesters on various matters. I think we shouldn't play into their hands or give them any oxygen to promote their conspiracy theories.
No, thank you. Pleasing to hear.
Very good. All right. Well, look, I think that's actually been a great session. I've got a lot out of it, and I think colleagues have as well. So thank you very much to the team for providing that. It's greatly appreciated. So that was that was a very timely COVID-19 health update, and I'll pull back up my my agenda, and I think I'm just going to the
Leanne. Helen and I need to go to other national forums.
Yep.
I've just put a suggestion on chat, which I'll chat to I've forgotten his name, sorry, forgive me. Who's our liaison, key liaison person? we'll chat and clarify comms program with all.
Yep, no, that is absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much. And and on that note, I'll move that we receive the update from the CDHB on COVID-19 vaccination rollout. So do I have a seconder for that? Yes, I have Graham Smith. So I will put that motion. Anyone opposed to that, let me know. Everyone's in favour, so there, thank you. That's now received. And James, should we move back to the agenda, which would be...
That sounds good, Leanne.
Actually, we are on the agenda, so we just move on to the May-June Canterbury flood response, is that right?
Yes.
Right, okay, so who's leading off on this one? Sorry, I've got to keep opening up my one page and then another, so this is very difficult because I can't print off my form, my papers, sorry.
I'll lead off, Leanne, and Bede can add to it if Bede needs to as chair of KEG. I'm not going to go through the whole report. I think you've all been able to see that. I would like to highlight, however, that we are carrying out an after-action report. We have engaged resilient organisations to do that. They will look to review debriefs that all of our territorial authorities and partner agencies have held. And then after having a bit of a look at that, we'll then carry out interviews. And I've asked them to make sure that when they do the after action report, they look to identify lessons and make recommendations that we can take to the next coordinating executive group and next joint committee meetings at the end of the year. And I'm happy to take any questions on anything else that's come out of that report.
Right. Do I have any questions? I can't see any. I've just I noted to myself that Christchurch would like to be contributing to that as well, even though we weren't so much involved in the state of emergency. John? No, can you, I'm not hearing you at all. No, nothing. Have you got your computer turned off? The sound on your computer? No. I wonder if you should go out and come back in again. I just can't think of whatever to do, you know, in terms of helping you out there. All right, Mari.
Sorry, it's just a correction, I think, in the attachment to this report in regard to the Huranui district. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the declaration history, it states, was covered by local declaration for Canterbury for period 30th June until local transition to recovery notified 3rd of June. I suspect that 30th of June should be the 30th of May. Is that correct?
Yes, you are right. That's my mistake. Sorry. Thank you.
No, that's fine. I just thought for accuracy, it's best to be.
That eagle eye would have earned you a chocolate fish at our council meeting. So I'm assuming that there's nothing further on that. So would someone like to move that be accepted? I could. Yeah, Dan and Mari. So Dan Gordon, Mari Black, and anyone objecting to that motion. Right, that's all good. And now we move on to the 7.3, which is the flood recovery report. And Peter Cameron, who now holds this position, perhaps now that we've authorised you to hold this position, you can give your first report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the support. I just really put this report, or Baden brought it together before he left. I'll just table it. There's not much. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We have one transition still in effect. That's in the Selwyn district, supporting ECAN and with river works on the Selwyn River. I guess the main points that have come out of the recovery operation are the three papers that we've forwarded to Nema, one written to the Minister, which had the support of the Mayoral Forum, basically building better resilience on the East Coast is the broadest probably description, but focusing on the works around the river protection and also the main supply route protection, particularly Ashburton River Bridge. And then the other two papers were really for the Chief Executive to take up with the various organisations, particularly NZTA, about the finance rate, and with MPI about the small holdings and lifestyle blocks. We have had one other meeting with the recovery managers this week. Everybody seems to have gone back and is doing the work under their BAU structures now. We have one further meeting planned for the 8th of September, which will probably be a wind-up meeting in terms of the recovery effort. And we're waiting for a reply from Nema about the three papers we've put up. So that's it, really. Thank you.
Very good. Bede?
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. Just to add to that, at KEG, what we did discuss was whether or not, or in actual fact, looking at the total cost of these events, because we have our council costs in terms of the fixing the roads or the infrastructure, but we also we are aware that there's a significant cost on our landlords, there's a social cost, there's opportunity cost, and so what KEG is going to look at doing is with Nema or through Simon Chambers, reaching out and even connecting with Treasury to see if we can't develop a model that gives us a much better visibility over what are the true and full costs of these events to our communities. So just to let you know, that piece of work was discussed, and we'll look at getting that going through KEG.
That's very good, thank you. The one thing that I kind of wanted to float with the group is that not only that we should receive the report, but that as a group we should endorse the three attachments, and also that I should write to the minister and copy to the relevant additional ministers support our acknowledged support for them, because although we've asked for the matters to be brought to the attention of the individual departments and for them to take it up to their ministers, or for the Minister of Civil Defence to take it up with his colleagues, I think that me sending it to him and then also copying it to those relevant ministers actually does mean it goes into those departments in a sort of a front-facing way, rather than relying on others to do it for us. Sam?
Yeah, just thanks for the report, and agree with what you're saying there, Leanne. But just keen to also acknowledge that the recovery effort from many people, particularly on farms, is going to be months still in the making, and for the work that's gone on so far has been good, and there's been a lot of support that's been there. But actually the true effects of this, both social, mental, particularly on farmers, but the economic impacts will be felt next autumn when reduced stocking numbers, reduced feed on farms, the impact of having to fix all sorts of things are going to actually be felt. And at the moment, there's been this reaction to try and get things up and running. But we just got to remember that although the floods happened, the water's gone. Actually, the recovery is still many more months to come, and the impacts will continue to be felt. So I just wanted that said and shared, because it's well to think backwards, but as we just saw with the Mural Forum earlier, the work on stop banks and the ongoing discussions around preventing future flooding is a big piece of work that will need to continue and should also be included as part of this recovery work.
Thank you, Sam. Well said. Neil, and then John.
Yeah, well said, Sam. And this flood is just the opposite of a drought, or similar to a drought, but it's the opposite. It was water instead of not enough of it. And the drought effects go on for 1, 2 something odd years. So the flood is no different, especially Ashburton, where it was hit the hardest. It will carry on for 1 or 2 years, so needs to be taken into account.
Thank you. John? No, please. Try again. Oh no. I don't know what's going on. Is it your computer? Must be. Oh, he's given up. Sorry, John. Send a typed message. Right. Presumably that doesn't hold things up, though, does it, John? I mean, we can proceed to move those motions. All good, right? That was a thumbs up. So I'm sorry. Oh God, I've got to keep moving these papers around. So let's have a look. Where are we? So this is. So I'd like to move that we receive the report on the May-June flood recovery, and that we endorse the 3 reports on lifestyle blocks, New Zealand Transport Agency funding, assistance rates, and State Highway 1 resilience, with me writing to the Minister of Emergency Management confirming the Joint Committee endorsement of the reports and copying it to the relevant ministers. Do I, so now I have to put that down so I can see if I have a seconder for that motion. Is that Neil Brown? Yes. Yes, that was a thumbs up. That's good. So again, I'll put the motion, which is that, and anyone who, is there any objection to that? There appears to be none. Thank you. Oh, okay. John's just going to listen to everything. I'm really sorry, John. I don't know what's caused it. Okay, so that's that item. Now, I think my notes say that we now move on to the Nema update, but we've lost Simon. So who's going to give that?
So, Leanne, perhaps I could give a bit of an update here. I'm not going to cover everything that Simon would have covered, but I think there's
yeah, James, right?
Oh, James, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I think there is one bit in there in particular that I know there's been conversations happening around, and that is around the legislative review of the CDM Act. This is now no longer going to be just a refresh or a review of the current Act. It is actually now a complete rewrite. By the end of this year, we should have seen discussion documents coming out on the proposed changes and the new Act in place towards the end of 2022. But one bit that I know that some members of the Joint Committee and CARE have been very interested in is how the legislative changes will impact on iwi. And so the current thinking is that, or the current proposal is that iwi will be now included as voting members on the joint committees, with potentially up to 50% membership. So that's certainly good to hear. It's acknowledging the partnership and the treaty, and there will be opportunity for us to all have discussion on that paper or that discussion paper once it comes out. So as I said, I know there was discussion with some members of this committee as well as KEG, and hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity as to what's happening in regards to iwi. Thank you, Leanne.
Because John raised that at the last meeting, and so I followed that up with Bede. We went and had a chat to Ngāi Tahu, and perhaps Bede, would you like to just give a quick update on that conversation?
Thank you, Leanne. So yes, as Leanne mentioned, we had a kōrero about just a week and a half ago with some of the Ngāi Tahu team, and at that it was agreed that there would be a further conversation which James and I then had with Trevor McGlinchey from Ngāi Tahu, and essentially what is proposed here is to seek endorsement from the joint committee for us to explore further what sort of involvement and participation Ngāi Tahu might have in terms of the joint committee, and with regard to the proposed legislation, whether or not we can influence and shape that to reflect the sort of participation that Ngāi Tahu would like to have. And so that was where it concluded. I think it was earlier this week, James, we had that conversation with Trevor.
That's right.
We're seeking the endorsement of the joint committee to further that kaupapa.
So you also mentioned that Trevor had talked about the West Coast model that had been developed in the meantime. So do you want to just reflect on that as well?
Yes, okay, yes, certainly, thank you. So the West Coast model has, I think it's two representatives, iwi representatives, who sit on the joint committee by invitation and ex officio. So they're not yet full members because the legislation requires the joint committee to be comprised of elected members. So those who sit as by invitation and participate, but they are not full members of the joint committee.
Yeah, and I think that we got feedback, and I don't want to speak for you, Jamie, at all, but we had feedback from Elizabeth on a previous occasion that there's a sense of not really knowing what the mandate is in terms of contributing at this committee level. So wanting to secure a way forward under the current framework, and then also influencing how the legislation might shape up in a positive way would be a very good outcome. Did you want to speak at all, Jamie?
Probably at this stage, Leanne, we were quite encouraged. It was a very good conversation. I wasn't part of it. It was, but Trevor and Arahia mentioned to us that we still need to work out what our role will be in that, but also probably improving our capability as well, so that we are making a meaningful contribution within that regard. So so we're just going to work on those next steps within the office.
I just think in terms of emergency response, we know from our own experience in Canterbury that iwi comes to the table with considerable considerable bounty to bring to the table. It's not a question of sitting at the table. It's a question of bringing value to the table. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to take this conversation forward. So are we? No, sorry. I need to open up my agenda again and have a look at what we are resolving. We are resolving that we received the Nema presentation and update. Do I have a seconder for that? Craig Rowley. Thank you. I'll put that motion. Anyone, any objection? There appears to be none. That is carried. Right, now we move on to the other one of the appointments in the appointment paper, which is, sorry, this is very difficult to do it this way, but there you go. No, it's not. It's not in that paper. No. Or is it? No. Sorry, I'm just, we move on to the civil defence. Is this right, James? James, can you help me out? It's the
sure,
the joint
sure, Leanna.
committee.
Yeah, sure. I suppose we did skip over a couple of little pieces in that appointment, that legislated appointments fund when we did the bit for Peter. I suppose just for the joint committee to know that we've also lost recently our group welfare manager, Jessica. She has been seconded into Environment Canterbury to assist ECAN with the flood recovery. And we're in the process of appointing a new permanent, short-term contract for a replacement for her. And likewise with Baden leaving us in as a group recovery manager, we're also interviewing for new people to take on that role as a half FTE. So we're actually increasing our number of hours in group recovery with this new person coming on board. So I suppose that's the only additional pieces to add to what we covered at the start of the meeting, Leanne.
Right. Oh, we can include that as having been dealt with in the resolution at the beginning.
Cool.
Thank you. And so now we move on to your report.
Yep, we've got the finance report there as well.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything too much to highlight there other than just where we sit with our reserve. I know there was lots of discussion on that. The financial reserve currently sits at negative $755,000. But in the current long-term plan budget for this year and next year, we've increased that replenishment to $650,000. So that should just take a couple of years to get back up to where we want it, as long as we do not have any more emergencies. But happy to take any questions on either the LTP component there or the end of year finances.
Any questions, comments? I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Dan Gordon. I'll put that. Any objections? There appear to be none. Thank you. Now your report, sorry.
Thank you. I'd just like to highlight in this one the incredible response we had out of Canterbury to support the Upper South Island flooding. You know, we all know that Buller was significantly impacted by the flooding they had, and really want to highlight the fact that we had 19 of our response team volunteers head over late afternoon on the 16th, and we were immediately tasked helping with evacuations and some other quite complex tasks over the next wee while, including spontaneous volunteer management, and then eventually helping to do assessments of yellow zoned houses that were flood damaged that people were actually allowed to go and accommodate just because there was so little other places for people to go. So a really fantastic effort there, but also a fantastic effort from all of our other councils who provided staff either through the national EMAT system, through our own C10 program, or directly just as EOC staff over to Buller Council. I think in total there was about another 19 staff went and helped. So I just want to thank all the councils for that support in allowing that to happen. I know Buller and West Coast, and Marlborough, sorry, as well. Marlborough all very much appreciated that. I'm not going to talk too much about the common operating picture. You can see what's there. The external review of MTech, our PTE, that occurred a couple of months ago. We were waiting on a final result of that, but it felt very good, and we got a verbal update from NZQA that our programs were relevant. We have very good trainers. We're proactive and responsive to your council needs. We've got robust academic processes. We're future focused, and overall are high performing. So we were quite excited about that, and are looking forward to hopefully getting a positive written result for that one. The Nema Cdm strategy, I think this caused a little bit of confusion when it was first promulgated, that it was a sort of a strategy about how CDEM in this country will work. What it really is just a strategy on how Nema and the CDEM groups will work, particularly around developing work programs that are consistent and supported. At the moment, we've sort of got 16 CDM groups that are off doing their own thing with a bit of guidance from Nema. This is about us sort of getting our work programs a little bit more aligned, so that we're not duplicating effort, and our arrows are starting to head in the same direction. So I take it as a positive step. Probably in the 20 years that I've been involved in CDM, one of the first times I've seen some national leadership in this space, which I really appreciate. Public alerting, just be aware that the emergency mobile alerting system can now be shared on the Red Cross Hazard app. That just increases that capability into places where there might be Wi-Fi, but not cell phone coverage. So, you know, if you've got communities that do have internet coverage but not cell phone coverage, do encourage them to adopt using that Red Cross Hazards app, because it will rebroadcast the emergency mobile alerts. There's just a little bit about snow concerns. It really does fit in our rural communities. We did see some snow a few weeks ago. Just once again, our rural sector is under pressure, and snow at this time of the year is hard work for them. And lastly, just resilient fund applications. The results of these came out between the KEG meeting and this meeting. I just want to say that one of them on a situation reporting tool was unsuccessful, but one around a Lifelines GIS portal for resilience work was successful in receiving $175,000 of support. And I will get the Lifelines group to report to our next KEG and our next joint committee in more detail on exactly these two programs and what they're going to do. That's my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I just wonder whether it would be worthwhile me writing to the response team volunteers to thank them for what they did on behalf of the group, because it is good for the group, even though they were out of region. That it's good for us that that they do that.
I would support that, Leanne. I'm quite happy to work with you on creating a letter for them. Yes.
Good. And look, excuse my natural suspicion, but when I read the sort of kind of the Nema Cdm stuff, I did immediately go, oh God, another centralisation bid, and dragging away from the locality. I mean, and I just do worry about the resilience stuff, because that really does sit in local authorities. You know, what resilience means in Huronui is quite different from what it means in Christchurch, is quite different from what it means in Wellington and Auckland. You know, like, it's just, and I do worry sometimes that there is this belief that central government can do this, or it can be a centralized one size fits all. I think I noticed what's his name, John used that phrase, you know, that one size fits all from central government. I think we absolutely have to be alert to this. So I'm taking some comfort from what you said about the workshop. So, but I thought I should voice my natural suspicion.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. It wasn't clearly communicated, and I know these workshops were started when Neville was still around, and I wasn't sort of aware of the whole process. And going into them at first, I thought, oh, what is this strategy stuff that we're supposed to be doing? But having been to the first meeting now and having that clarity that it is around how Nema and CDM groups will work together, more in a sort of common picture, I felt much more comfortable than I did prior to going into it.
Okay. Oh, well, as long as we've all got our radar on to central government's desire to centralise. Has anyone got any questions or comments for James? We don't need a resolution for me to write to people, but I'll move that we receive the report, and you'll know that we're going to do that anyway. So do I have a seconder for that? Sam, right? Any discussion? No. That is resolved unless I have any objections, which appear to be none. So that's now carried as well. And I think now we're on to general or urgent business. We've dealt with the urgent business. So is there anything else that anyone else wants to raise? Is there anything else I've forgotten without looking at my agenda? John?
No, nothing, but it appears I've got it working now.
Back.
You had a very pleasant meeting. Thank you. It worked well before lunch for my last meeting.
I wonder what happened.
I unblocked 3 different microphones, but something sort of locked everything out. Just one comment going back to, I guess, the review of the civil defence stuff at ECAN. We've had a lot of people sort of coming to us, conflating the role of region and group with the TA. So it would be really useful to have some clarity, particularly for some of my colleagues at Environment Canterbury, of just where the roles and responsibilities sit. And there are obviously all those bits and pieces that fall through that we learn from in every event. So just useful to have a clarity of role would be helpful.
Well, since that I'm not kind of running again, I'm actually wondering whether I might usefully contribute to a sort of a sort of the handover documentation for the incoming group and chair. So I don't know. I just think that it probably would have been more helpful to me when I first started if that clarity had been there, John. I think that's a really helpful point. There are a lot of people who think, for example, that because ECAN is paying rations, that is somehow, so when Christchurch City was at loggerheads with ECAN back before I arrived.
You were you?
Yeah, there was a lot of tension sitting in there, and but because the civil defence team, the joint committee team, were employed by ECAN, they thought they were ECAN employees. Christchurch City did. So I just think it would be useful to have a clear descriptor of roles and responsibilities, as you say. It's good.
I think it would. My fellow councillors on rivers and engineering and a bunch of things saying, or roading and regional transport, go, that's our role, that's our role, that's our role. And I go, no, in the immediacy, that's civil defence's role to sort, and then it comes from that. So just a clarity, a schematic of where those roles sit would take a lot of tension out of the future.
Yeah, cool. Right, okay, so is there anything else? Doesn't appear to be. So perhaps can I hand back to you, Jamie, to close the meeting? Thank you.
Oh, right, kia ora tātou. He karakia whakamutunga kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou āriki a ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake, āmene.
Kia ora, thank you very much. So farewell, people. Be careful out there. We'll probably see you on another conference call sometime soon.
Thanks, Leanne. Good weekend, everyone.
Okay, bye.